Good evening. Welcome to our meeting, our regular trustee meeting. Today, Monday, January 24th at 5:00 p.m. If all you would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We have an agenda for our meeting today. Are there any changes or corrections? Additions?
No.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for the January 24th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $331,133.23 for the January 12, 2022 payroll.
Second.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I make a motion to accept the payments listing report in the amount of $691,116.99 for warrants through January 20th, 2022.
Second.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 10th, 2022 regular trustee meeting.
Second.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes. We're at a point in our meeting where we have citizens desiring to speak. If any citizen here would like to speak, you have 3 minutes to let us know what you feel. Seeing none, we're going to go to our pre-scheduled speaker with Ohio Task Force 1 deployments.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to give you guys a brief recap of our deployment to in response with Ohio Task Force 1 to the Kentucky tornadoes that happened in December. Lieutenant Fothergill, I'm currently on this shift out of Station 65. Firefighter Heaton, he's on this shift as well today, stationed here at Station 1. We were activated on Sunday afternoon. Does it do it? Oh, it does. Sunday afternoon. What was that?
That was you.
Oh, good Lord. We'll just turn that off. On Sunday afternoon, in response to the Kentucky tornadoes, big thing about these tornadoes is how long the tornadoes were on the ground. I mean, almost 170 miles. Went through 11 different counties. A lot of destruction through those little tiny western Kentucky towns. We all saw the news with the candle factory and the Amazon fulfillment center and all those things, and that's kind of what we were called in to do, help out with, the folks that started the operations, the locals, and then state, and then it moved up to a task force from Indiana before we were activated. Did a really good job on starting the process, and they didn't know what they didn't know yet, and they needed some eyes and some ears and some people that were experts in this type of work to tell them what they needed to know. We were activated as a Type 3, which is 12-hour operations. It's all the same equipment, so we travel with 18 vehicles, 3 semis, 3 big box trucks, all kinds of crazy stuff, but it's just half the folks, because we're in that configuration. We are built to just have 12-hour operations, because it really doesn't make sense for us to work at night on this type of stuff, just because it's a lot of these communities and things are on curfews and things like that, so they don't want us out there, so we get broken in half. So we were deployed to Murray State University, which is in western Kentucky, kind of in the centrally located, all these little towns that were pretty much destroyed. That was our base of operations. We spent 5 days there?
Yep.
5 days there, and it was, the dorm they put us up in was scheduled to be demolished, and it's a good thing it's scheduled to be demolished, because if I was a student going there, I wouldn't have been too happy. It was easily 110 degrees in the hallway, because the boilers they hadn't had on, they just fired them on, and there was one setting that was all the way on. So it was pretty warm, pretty warm. Like I said, firefighter Heaton and I were the two members on the task force here at Beavercreek that went. I went as a canine search specialist, and Chris went as a rescue specialist. The big thing for Chris here, this was his first deployment. He became deployable in October, and right out of the chute, got to go on a good deployment that we did a lot of really good work on. And this was a little different for me as well, because typically when I deploy with the dogs, I only deploy with one of them. They tasked me to bring both of them. So that was a lot more management on my piece. Our first day of operations, we drove overnight. We were deployed Sunday evening, drove all night. Monday, got into Western Kentucky, got a area of operations which was Western Graves County. That was west of the candle factory, in areas that they weren't even sure anybody was still there. So they need to give us some place to start. And so that's what we did, and that's what it looked like. There was nothing left of these poor little houses and things that, these folks didn't have much to begin with. And
a large majority of the county area we searched that first day, it was a lot of trailers.
Yep.
So for the most part, just, you'd find a concrete pad and the trailer was 30, 40, 50, 60 feet away in pieces, in a tree line or something like that.
And the big thing I will tell about these folks, my group got tasked with this one street where, beginning of the street was 2 miles long, and it was winding and went through some, over some creeks and things like that, and through some woods. The houses at the beginning of the road to the west were damaged. They were off their foundation, but just barely off their foundation. And every one of them, to a T, asked us if we needed anything. Like, whoa, 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 we're here to help you guys. So that shows their spirit and what good folks they were. And they said, we'll just wait till you get to the other end of the road. There were multiple fatalities up there. Everything, a whole neighborhood just pushed into a big pile. It was a big mess. Chris, do you want to talk about Dawson Springs?
Yeah, so, and kind of back, so that first day we got assigned to that county kind of surrounding the city of Mayfield. Our initial idea that we were kind of briefed on was we were going to finish the county and more than likely end up in Mayfield assisting Indiana at the candle factory. Right about lunchtime, phones started going off and those plans went out the window. So from there, it was about a 2-hour drive.
Yeah.
Over to Dawson Springs. So started getting some feedback that Dawson Springs was very heavily impacted and had very little support because a majority of kind of the state assets, and it seemed like a lot of focus was on Mayfield being a bigger city. So we ended up in Dawson Springs. I think we rolled into town about 3 o'clock. And actually, right as we got into town, the local fire chief, I believe it was all like a volunteer fire department, touched base with us and kind of went, the town's yours. So very quickly at first day was just a lot of kind of learning the lay of the land. We got assigned down to some apartment cul-de-sacs that had not been touched, and there was multiple reports of people missing there. So Ohio kind of took over Dawson Springs at that point, and started all of our work there. Dawson Springs is a small little town. It's about 2,500 people. It's about 4 square miles. The map doesn't show up all that well, but it would be comparable to one of our little subdivisions for the most part. It was estimated about 75% of the town had been damaged or destroyed. And actually, as we were driving there, we started looking it up to see what we could find out. And on our arrival, they had over 100 people still missing at that point.
In this little town.
The mayor here was the one, and you may have seen it, it was on national news, that they had 8 pages of single-space names of people missing. That was all this town. So very quickly had a lot of work ahead of us because as you kind of look at the orientation of that town, the tornado literally went kind of this direction through there. So it went right through the bulk of their town. So a pretty large amount of damage throughout there.
And this is right along the I-69 corridor. It just, the tornadoes followed that I-69 corridor. And yeah, this was just kind of one of the ones that hadn't been helped yet. So we're like, well, here we are.
Yeah, so this is really where, you know, the bread and butter of the work was. And, you know, in a lot of areas, especially our first day in the rural areas, a lot of just FEMA damage assessments. We have apps on our phone that we say severe, destroyed, minor, whatever. This was kind of a mix of both. The rules of engagement that we got from the local authorities were basically if the building looked like someone could still be in it, we were to force our way in and search it, whether that's by canine or just manual manipulation. So a lot of what we saw was buildings either completely destroyed. The picture in the center there was actually one I took. That, if you notice, those folks are standing in what was the basement of that house. It had shifted the house completely off. And then the pictures on the right were a lot of kind of our interior conditions we were seeing. So, you know, whether the roof was ripped off, whether the entire house was racked. So a lot of really kind of heavy duty internal searching was done. I couldn't even give you an estimate probably of how many houses I crawled through, you know, so it was a lot of heavy work. And then we had a big area of debris, like a debris field that was a couple of acres probably, that
Oh, at least.
they had. It was kind of the worst case scenario. It was a bunch of thistles and thorns. It was probably 2 or 3 feet of trees and limbs, and then probably another couple feet of debris. And it was so thick, a lot of the canines couldn't get through it. We ended up grid searching that. So it was stand arm lengths apart and go over or under anything in front of you. And that was about a 3.5 hour ordeal of just searching that one area because of the amount of damage that we encountered there. But kind of back what Nick said about the folks that we dealt with out in the county, same thing here. We had countless interactions with the citizens, you know, obviously making sure they were as stable as they can be. Again, very nice folks. I mean, super appreciative of the work that was being done. So it was a good experience there.
And yeah, it was a short deployment. And again, when we go on these things, we work for an AHJ. We work for like a Beavercreek Township if, you know, the township for some reason or another requested a task force. So whenever their work they have for us is done, you know, unless we get kicked back up to the region or the state or something like that, who will basically fund us for a time period, we get demobilized. So it was a quick deployment, but you know, the structure search was in the thousands of just, you know, those 3.5 days that we were working pretty heavily. I couldn't tell you the amount of data, you know, that we collected. We have people that do all that stuff. I'm the dummy end of the leash. And yeah, so that's Chris and I on the last day, waiting to come home because both of our wives were like, are you going to be home for Christmas?
Yeah, this deployment, you know, when we activate, obviously they can hold us up to 16 days with travel days. So this one could have easily extended through Christmas. So no one was really heartbroken on the team when we got orders to come home. So.
No, and that morning we found out that everybody on that 8-page list had been found, you know, elsewhere. They were with their family somewhere else, or, you know, found on social media that they were okay. So, you know, our work there was pretty much done. So they're gonna, you know, be recovering from this for a decade. So it's a mess. Questions?
We had good experience from 19. so-
It was very similar.
Yeah, it brought a
Oh, you
lot of
guys knew-
memories back.
Because we were both on shift when that
Yep.
came through. So yeah, that was oddly familiar.
Did you find people in the wreckage?
We did not. Like, you know, what I brought up at the beginning, the locals did such a good job that they had, you know, we were the suspenders and they already had put the belt on.
Yeah.
Just to, you know, double check, because that's the last thing we want, is for somebody to be missed.
Yeah, most of the areas we were in, it seemed like we were a day behind the fines. The rural area, I know they had I tagged a building that there was a family of 4 that was killed. And then in Dawson Springs, we went through some apartments that they had found, I want to say 3 or 4 bodies in the parking lot of the apartment the day before. So fortunately or unfortunately, we were a little behind on those.
Yeah.
But yeah, the locals, they really, for especially the limited resources they had really knocked out a lot of work before we got there.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I did not. I assume, what was the age of the structures that you were going through, roughly?
It
50s and
kind of the
60s?
era, it looked like maybe a lot of 60s and 70s. There was a lot of modular mobile home type things, especially in the rural area.
Yeah.
It looked like the city was it kind of reminded me of kind of like a Garden View, kind of the same size, same kind of layout. So
The
probably
downtown
pretty-
core was a little older,
Yeah.
but then as soon as you got off like the 3 main streets downtown, they quickly moved in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So very, very similar to kind of what we dealt with here.
Jessica, any questions?
I didn't have anything additional.
I want to thank you both for taking the time to share with us and the citizens here about what you did and what you do. And thank you for taking the time before a holiday to go down to and help other people. You
Thank
guys
you.
are trained
Thank
really
you.
well, and we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more?
So I don't have the gift of gab like these guys do, so mine's pretty short. So we went down to Louisiana. I think this is our 3rd time going to the same area of Louisiana in 2 years. So they get hit by a lot of hurricanes. This one was Ida. It was in the New Orleans area in late August going into September. We sent down a Type 3 team, which is a 45-man team. It's kind of one of our smaller teams. We were sent down ahead of the hurricane. I was expected to be a Cat 5 hurricane, ended up being a Cat 4, but really close to a Cat 5. 150-mile-an-hour winds, rains of 24 inches in some areas overnight, storm surges from going up into the rivers and then coming back down. I was told the rivers were reaching 17 feet above what they normally are. And no evacuation orders were given, so no one left. So the problem was everyone stayed. I'm not sure why they didn't give evacuation orders. So we were sent down there a couple days ahead of the storm. So we ended up going into Lafayette, Louisiana, which is about 75 miles away from New Orleans. And we stayed in a gymnasium. We didn't have a nice dorm to stay in, but gymnasium's nice enough. We had air conditioning and power. The storm came in, I think, late Sunday. And where we were at, people didn't even know there was a hurricane coming. We were talking to people. They're just out walking their dogs. And it was really wild to see that, there's a hurricane, like it's coming, and these people had no idea. So while we were in Lafayette, we prepared the boats. We take with us metal boats called John boats and inflatable boats. And the inflatable boats we actually have to put together when we get into theater. So the first day is us just getting all of our stuff ready for flooding. And then we also refreshed, they talked a little bit about it, the Survey 123 app, the collector app. So they always refresh us on how to use those. That's how FEMA gets all of their information, like they said, on how damaged something is, how flooded, injuries, victims, all of that. That's how they collect all that. Ida made landfall. I believe it was late Sunday. We were hearing lots on the news of people being trapped and being rescue people. It was very hard for us to sit idle, hearing that people were trapped and needed help. But unfortunately, like they said, we don't get a job until the jurisdiction having authority asks us to come in. So it was very hard. There were very unhappy folks sitting in a parking lot just waiting, and we just weren't getting asked to help. So most of the rescues made were either by, the people that live there or the local responders. There's something in Louisiana called the Cajun Navy. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but they actually do a lot of the rescues down there. They're just local people that have whatever boats, bass boats, whatever, and they made a lot of rescues in this situation. We staged in New Orleans with Indiana, Colorado, and Missouri. We staged there for a day with no work while listening to all of these people being trapped. The next day they had us go through New Orleans metro area and do damage assessments. And honestly, there was not a lot of damage, superficial, really. And we did that for a day. We completed that. And then the next day they sent us to Livingston Parish, it's close. It's more rural. There was widespread flooding in that area. And a little bit more devastation, just wind damage, flooding from the river. This is Lake Pontchartrain in that picture. If you guys remember Katrina, that river or that lake overflowed, and that was the big reason that Katrina was so devastating. And if you can see in that picture, we're going over this like mile-long bridge that goes over it. Oh, it's more than, I think 20 miles?
Yeah, it's pretty long.
It's a long bridge. But if you can see, the water is right at that bridge. I mean, it didn't cause the devastation it did in Katrina, but it was very close. This is Livingston Parish. This is what we saw everywhere. Just water flowing from the rivers towards the homes. Most people just sheltered in place. They didn't have any needs or wants. They were happy to just stay in place. Ohio spent most of our time in this area just doing damage surveys, reporting the extent of the flooding, and reporting any kind of utility hazards. And that's really about all we did. We really just kind of did the flooding surveys for most of the area. We left a few days after doing surveys in Livingston Parish. They didn't have any more tasks for us, so we headed home.
Lieutenant, can you identify yourself? Please?
I'm Lieutenant Harmon. I'm sorry. I did not put that in there either.
Is there anything that we can do as trustees to talk to those in charge of Ohio Task Force 1 or legislators to get you more involved or get you down there earlier or make some changes that you guys see when you get there that could be changed?
I think it's really just based on the jurisdictions down there. I know for this one, the jurisdictions down there are not, they don't love FEMA. After Katrina, there is some bad blood between those jurisdictions and FEMA. Mm-hmm. And since we are a FEMA team, even though we're not FEMA per se, they don't want to use us until they absolutely have to. Most places, like in Kentucky, I think they probably call them into action really quick because they don't have, they don't have that history, but it just depends on the jurisdiction. And literally, we just have to wait until they ask us to work.
Well, if you all of you, if you find that there's some suggestions that we can make and stand up for you or talk to some of the legislators to make any changes that would be helpful to the task force, please let us know.
I think one area, because it is kind of funded federally and the state, and I know in hearing Director Schumann talk, that's really a big focus, is just encouraging, the powers to be to continue and possibly increase the funding, towards that program. It's a very expensive program to run. I think they estimate when we roll out the door, it's something like $8 million in assets in our cash. And something breaks in training or even on deployments, it can take a long time to get funding squared away to replace some of those items. So just kind of encouraging that support, to have them vote yes when that piece of legislation crosses their desk, because it's a year by year legislation that they have to continue to fund the task force. So.
Well, Well, we'll be meeting with our legislators Wednesday night, so, for the Ohio Township Association, so that's one of the things that we can bring forward to all the legislators that we can talk to about this.
That'd be great.
Well, any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time to be here tonight.
Stay safe.
You can stay for the meeting if you want to, or you can leave.
It's dinner time. It's
Yeah.
dinner
Be careful out there. Okay, we have old business, there is none. New business, none. We come up to our Greene County Sheriff's Office, biweekly activity report. Any questions or comments?
I had none. Are there any awareness items that are on the horizon?
No awareness items. These are yearly stats. If you were provided with that, or with the monthly stats, if not the yearly stats, will come to the next meeting. But was very happy with all the numbers. It's always difficult to talk about numbers in law enforcement because you show an increase, there's questions why, but it's an increase in the fact of all of our just the preventative patrols, the business checks, the community interactions. We're all higher numbers that just show that our deputies are getting out there and doing what you ask of them, and just do a really good job. So if those numbers are not with you today, you'll have next meeting.
Any feedback as far as the Factory Road and Orchard Lane intersections, as far as with the barrels down, things calmed down a little bit? Or?
From our standpoint, things have calmed down. We don't see any increases on anything. Of course, there's always feedback from people that want to stop us and give us their opinion. But as far as what we can gather and just for the good of the order type thing, it seems to be functioning. It seems to be working out the bugs, and things are progressing.
Thank you, Sergeant Moore.
We have not had we've not had a soccer tournament without barrels though yet, correct? So that'll be coming. So.
That'll be coming in the spring, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Moore.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 38 of your packets, the biweekly report for HR. Are there any questions?
I had none.
I didn't have any either.
And I had no questions.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 41 of your packet. First item is to reschedule a public hearing for zoning case 827. I do have a motion printed out for you in front of you.
I'll make a motion to essentially schedule a hearing to consider zoning commission case 827 on February 14th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the comprehensive land use plan request for proposal, and I'll turn that over to our Fire Marshal, Randy Grogan.
Evening, Board. We've been working, and Mr. McConnell's been working heavily with MVBRC, or I'm sorry, Miami Valley Regional Planning Corporation, sorry, too many MVs that I have, developed the request for proposal, and it is to solicit a consultant to create the comprehensive land use plan. We've run everything by council, and I think she's reviewed everything. It's been in appropriate order. We're asking for you to approve that the release of the RFP to send out probably as early as tomorrow. And there's a sample motion on the
Page
agenda.
42.
Page 42.
Passed it. I make a motion to approve the release of the request for proposal for Beavercreek Township's comprehensive land use plan as presented.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Just a quick little update. Mr. Thompson did not get a chance to present the school transportation plan, to the Beavercreek School Board in the January school board meeting. He will be presenting that this next month, and then we should have something to bring to you for support of the grant funding. So that is all I have information-wise. And
Any
if you have
questions on
any
the bi-weekly?
additional questions for the bi-week?
Any questions?
I had none. We're off to a slow start, looks like, so as far as permits, but
Yes, yeah. Fire protection-wise too, or zoning and fire protection-wise, but we're expecting to kind of step up with zoning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the bi-weekly report for IT. Are there any questions?
I had none.
I had none.
I have none.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the Finance Department bi-weekly report. Are there any questions?
I had no questions for Mr. Rush.
I had none.
Me neither.
All right. Thank you, Board. Next item's on page 69 of your packet, is the, under Road Department, is the highway mileage certificate for 2021. Mr. Parks is here to answer any questions. I do have a page that we'll have to give back to the county engineer for her signature. There's a spot for all three trustees to sign. There's also a motion on page 69.
I'll make a motion to approve the 21 or 22?
21.
The 2021 Beavercreek Township Highway System mileage certification as presented.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the bi-weekly report on page 72. One note is that our guys have been out addressing the white stuff coming down. They've done a great job. I did last weekend have to go on a call for the fire department, and our roads were in great shape.
Always hear great things about the roads and the snow season in the township. So thank you for all your efforts for that.
They were better than Washington Township, I'll tell you that. I drove through those, you blew them away. Tell Miss Lytle that.
There you go. Seems to always happen
There
then,
was
doesn't it,
no
though?
comparison.
I had no other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Be safe out there.
Next item's on page 74 of your packet is the bi-weekly report for the fire department. Fire chief is here to answer any questions.
Was there
Good evening,
more
Board.
content than was on page 73?
That was my question.
It's a link.
sorry?
Okay.
It's a link to 74.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's just
like-
blank. So I didn't know if there was something supposed to be there.
That's a
but-
template, so when there's,
Yeah, when we don't have other stuff, it still bumps to the
We
next
didn't buy,
page.
we're not buying anything.
Okay. so
No,
there
we're not
was
buying
truly
anything.
nothing
there was,
Okay.
I
Hey.
I
had a
could
whole
bring
lot
a
of
purchase
questions,
rec
but-
if you'd like.
It was all about the content of page 73.
I had a list of questions about that page.
It's like formatting, indentation. Okay. Otherwise, no, I had
I
no.
believe we don't have any questions.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for making time for the task force. I appreciate
Oh, I think
you
it's
taking an
wonderful.
interest in what they're doing.
And I think it's good for citizens to see what they're doing. You know, we have dedicated people that want to do it and take the time to help other people, so I
Absolutely.
think it's
And
important to view what they've done.
tonight was a good one, I think, to kind of tie the whole thing together and how it does benefit Beaver Creek. So they were some of the first crews out, as they mentioned, during our tornado. So all the skills and abilities that they learned doing that job, they bring back here. And then the same thing, that take the experience they get here and they're able to pay it forward to other communities as well, so.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time,
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you, board, that's all I have.
Our legal advisor, you have
I don't
anything
have
done?
anything. Nope.
Fiscal officer, Mr. Rushing?
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay. MVRPC, we'll have a meeting in a week. I did have the Institute Steering Committee meeting, and we'll talk more about the affordable, age-friendly communities, I'm talking with Alex on, and I'll give you guys copies of that report. MVRPC Technical Advisory Committee.
They did have a meeting. We'll have all the information and agenda items in your next packet.
Great. Regional Planning and Coordinate.
There is a meeting tomorrow evening, and so the Beavercreek Township does have one item on that agenda. It's Bluegrass Crossings for the nursing home and the Overbrook. And then there is the election of executive committee positions. So
Are you gonna run for it?
I've been nominated, so I don't know.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Health Department District Advisory.
Won't be a meeting till first Thursday of February, it'll be the next meeting.
Okay. School Superintendent, City Manager.
Had to cancel my meeting this week with the city manager due to the OTA conference on Wednesday. However, we did meet on Friday, discuss some different agenda items moving forward. We believe between city council and the 4 elected officials on the township trustees, we believe we have a meeting for tentatively April 18th. So if you can look at April 18th at 5 o'clock, it will be held at the city building. We'll have our joint meeting with city council.
April 18th.
Yeah, so we were
What time?
running into spring break, 5 o'clock. We're running into spring break and other scheduling issues, so that's why
That's Easter Monday. They are meeting that day.
I believe they are.
And it's also tax day.
Tax day.
Hmm.
It's gonna be a cluster.
5:00 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that's a joint meeting with the city, correct?
Correct.
Not with
City
schools.
No, schools we're gonna probably push to next quarter, maybe when the summertime meetings. And I'll try to have some dates by next meeting, because I know summer tends to fill up as well.
Okay.
I don't see any problems. Okay, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Restoration Advisory Board.
No meeting?
No meetings. Green County Township Association, we're having our first meeting of the year on February 8th. It'll be hosted by the Beavercreek Township. And will there be any township trustees able to come?
I will not be here.
I should be there, I have it on my calendar.
Great, because I won't be there. So I'll feed you in on some of the things that we'll try to hit on.
Perfect.
Great.
We
And
do
just-
have a speaker. It will be the new sheriff, Scott Anger, and App Architect will be also presenting. They're also co-sponsoring the event.
Perfect, thanks. Investment Oversight Committee.
I had nothing. You still have him on what month, or was he coming in March
Second meeting in
February
February.
22nd.
or February 22nd?
I'm
Okay.
sorry, 21st.
Anything else for the good of the order?
Had nothing else?
Except
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?